When God wakes you up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., it isn't an accident, an interruption, or a random moment of restlessness. No, it's a divine appointment. It's heaven tapping you on the shoulder saying, I need a moment with you before the world starts speaking to you, before the noise, before the opinions, before the distractions. You see, God doesn't always shout across your busy day, but he whispers in your quiet hours. And the question is, are you awake enough to listen? Are you alert enough to recognize that you're being summoned, not disturbed? Because when God interrupts your sleep, it's because he's trying to awaken something deeper than your body. He's awakening your destiny. The hours between 3 and 5 in the morning are what many call the spiritual watch. This is when your mind is uncluttered, your spirit is more sensitive, and heaven is more accessible. There are battles you can't see, blessings you haven't unlocked, and breakthroughs you haven't stepped into yet, and God knows you need clarity before you make your next move. So he calls you early. He wakes you when your heart is soft enough to receive instruction without arguing, doubting, or negotiating. This is the hour where God says, let me shape you privately before I bless you publicly. Because the greatest victories are won long before the sun comes up. When God wakes you up early between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., he is not disturbing your rest. He is disturbing your limits. That moment when your eyes open before the world does is not a coincidence. It is a divine signal that something in your life is about to shift. Most people see it as random, but spiritually alert people recognize it as a divine appointment. God doesn't wake you because he wants you tired. He wakes you because he wants you prepared. And if you listen closely, you'll realize he's not calling you out of sleep. He's calling you out of the level you've been stuck in. That gentle nudge before dawn is heaven's way of saying, you asked for more, now let me shape you for it. The hook is simple. Elevation always comes disguised as interruption, and those who recognize it step into realms others never access. You see, God works differently from the way we imagine. We think breakthroughs come during the day when we are energized, busy, active, and confident. But some of the most powerful breakthroughs are born in the hours when the world is silent and the soul is open. In those early morning moments, the noise of your environment disappears, and all that remains is you, God, and the truth that he's been waiting to whisper. That stillness is not emptiness, it is preparation. Success doesn't begin when you wake up for work. It begins when you wake up for purpose. And purpose often knocks before the sun rises. God wakes you early because he knows you cannot hear him once the day fills your mind with obligations, conversations, and distractions. The world speaks loud, but God speaks deep. And you only hear depth when everything else is silent. Some people underestimate the spiritual significance of the early hour. They think they just happened to open their eyes. But there is nothing accidental about divine timing. God wakes you because he wants to speak before life speaks, because he wants to guide you before fear guides you, because he wants to strengthen you before pressure meets you. This is the hook many miss. What God teaches you in private becomes the power you walk in publicly. That early awakening is where wisdom is planted, courage is renewed, strength is restored, and direction becomes clear. It is where God reveals what's next, heals what's hurting, and corrects what's drifting. You don't wake early because something is wrong. Often, you wake early because something is about to go right. Think about it. Some of the greatest transformations happen in unseen moments. Seeds grow underground before anyone sees a plant. Athletes train in silence before anyone cheers their name. Entrepreneurs make decisions in private before anyone sees their success. And believers get instructions in quiet hours before anyone sees their breakthrough. God waking you early is your spiritual training ground. It is where He equips you for rooms you haven't entered yet and opportunities you haven't imagined yet. When you say, God, enlarge my territory, He doesn't start with your circumstances. He starts with your capacity. And capacity is expanded in the stillness of early morning encounters. But here's the part that really changes everything. When God wakes you early, He's not just preparing you for something bigger. He's preparing you to become someone bigger. Transformation is not about what you achieve. It's about who you become in the process. God wakes you early to stretch your discipline, sharpen your awareness, deepen your faith, and elevate your mindset. He wakes you before sunrise because He wants you to rise before your circumstances do. You cannot step into a greater calling with yesterday's version of yourself. And God knows that the best time to shape the next version of you is when distractions are asleep and your spirit is awake. So when you find yourself awake between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., don't ask, why now? Ask, what are you preparing me for? That shift in mindset turns interruption into instruction and instruction into transformation. That is where the breakthrough begins. When God chooses to speak to you in the quiet hours, it is never without purpose. The silence between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. is not ordinary silence. It is sacred space. It is the moment when the world's volume is turned down and heaven's frequency is turned up. These are the hours where divine clarity becomes sharper than confusion, where direction becomes louder than doubt, and where whispers of purpose carry more power than the noise of your everyday life. God doesn't wait until the day begins to speak. He speaks before the day has a chance to influence you. And that is the hook many people miss. God speaks loudest when everything else is quiet, because He wants His voice to shape your steps before the world shapes your mind. When the day begins, you are pulled into conversations, responsibilities, distractions, and emotions that compete for your attention. You begin reacting instead of listening, surviving instead of discerning, moving instead of aligning. That's why God calls you early. He knows your spirit is most sensitive when your mind hasn't yet been filled with the weight of the world. He wakes you before the notifications, before the obligations, before the problems start knocking, because He wants your first influence to be Him, not stress, not fear, not pressure, not people. Your decisions are different when God becomes the first voice you hear. Your confidence feels different, your thinking becomes clearer, and your day is built on direction instead of confusion. Those quiet hours carry a presence that most people never tap into. It's not just silence, it's spiritual access. You hear what you normally ignore. You recognize what you normally dismiss. You sense what you normally overlook. That's the beauty of God's timing. He speaks when you're most open, not when you're most busy. And in those hours, He gives you insight you wouldn't have noticed at noon, solutions you wouldn't have recognized at sunset, and peace you wouldn't have felt in the chaos of the afternoon. The divine strategies He reveals in the early morning are the very strategies that carry you through the challenges of the day. If you miss the conversation in the quiet, you often miss the preparation for the pressure. This is where many people misunderstand the spiritual watch. They think waking up early is a burden, but it's actually a blessing. God doesn't wake you to drain you. He wakes you to download into you. He reveals ideas that shift your direction, convicting truths that reshape your character, gentle warnings that protect your path, and powerful promises that strengthen your heart. While others sleep, heaven is working on you. While the world rests, God is rebuilding you. While everything is still, God is moving in ways that become evident long after the sun rises. You don't realize how protected you are until you face something later in the day and suddenly know exactly what to do, because God already prepared you in the morning. And here's the hook that transforms everything. What God whispers in private often becomes the breakthrough that manifests in public. The quiet moments are where destiny is sculpted. They are where fear loses its voice, where faith rises stronger, where vision becomes clearer, and where identity becomes grounded. God uses those early hours to separate you from the noise so He can elevate you above the noise. The most impactful people in life are not the ones who simply plan their day. They are the ones who let God plan their spirit before the day even starts. When He speaks to you in those quiet hours, He is not just giving you instructions. He is giving you spiritual advantage. So when you find yourself awake before dawn, don't rush back into sleep. Lean into the silence. Lean into the whisper. Lean into the presence that fills the room, even when no one else is awake, because those quiet hours are not empty. They are loaded with revelation waiting to be heard. And the moment you tune in, everything about your day, your direction, and your destiny begins to shift. Your spirit wakes up before your success does, and most people don't realize how powerful that truth is. Long before your circumstances change, long before opportunities appear, long before people notice your growth, something begins shifting on the inside. You start feeling unsettled with where you are, not because anything is wrong, but because your spirit knows something greater is coming. That's why you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., not because your body is restless, but because your spirit is restless. Your inner world is receiving updates your outer world hasn't caught up to yet. And the hook many people miss is this: your spirit is always preparing you for what your mind is not yet ready to comprehend. When the spirit knows elevation is coming, it wakes you up early so you don't sleep through your next level. This internal awakening is often misunderstood. People think they're experiencing insomnia, stress, or anxiety. But what if it isn't stress? What if it's spiritual momentum? What if your soul is outgrowing your season? What if your spirit is moving faster than your life and your mind just hasn't processed the shift yet? God often speaks to your spirit before He reveals anything to your eyes, because your spirit is the most obedient part of you. Your spirit says yes before your logic says no. Your spirit accepts things your comfort zone would reject. Your spirit agrees to assignments your emotions would avoid. That's why the awakening starts internally, because God prepares your spirit first so your body, your habits, and your decisions can follow. Those early hours are where your spirit is most active and your ego is most quiet. Your spirit is not distracted. Your doubts are not loud. Your fears are not in control. And because of that, God can move in ways He can't move once the world wakes up. When your spirit wakes you early, it's because it's receiving something: strength, clarity, conviction, instruction, renewal, revelation. You may not fully understand what you're feeling, but something in you senses that the life you're living is not the life you're being prepared for. That sense of spiritual urgency is the evidence that God is shifting you before He elevates you. It is the preparation before the opportunity, the stretching before the blessing, the alignment before the breakthrough. And here's a powerful hook: your spirit wakes up early because it refuses to live another day unprepared. It knows what's coming. It knows the doors that are about to open. It knows the decisions you're about to face. It knows the attacks that might rise against you. And it knows you cannot walk into your future with yesterday's level of awareness. So it awakens you at the exact moment when your heart is soft enough, your mind is still enough, and your soul is open enough to receive what you need. It wakes you not to frighten you, but to fortify you, not to disturb your peace, but to upgrade your peace, not to steal your rest, but to prepare your rise. This is why you often feel something shifting even before you can explain it. You wake up with thoughts you didn't go to bed with. You wake up with a heaviness that feels more like purpose than pressure. You wake up with ideas, insights, or conviction, and you can't figure out why. That's your spirit awakening you ahead of time so that when success manifests, you won't be overwhelmed by it. God doesn't want your blessing to catch you unprepared. He wants your character, your mindset, your discipline, and your awareness to be at the level of the future He's releasing to you. The physical world always moves slower than the spiritual world. Your life unfolds one step at a time, but your spirit often receives the whole picture before anything physically changes. That gap between spiritual awakening and physical manifestation is where your early morning awakenings lie. That's the space where God is shaping you quietly for things that will show up loudly. Your spirit wakes before success because your spirit is the blueprint for the life you're about to live. So when you find yourself awake before dawn, don't assume something is wrong. Assume something is beginning. Assume something is shifting. Assume something is aligning. Your spirit knows what your future requires, and it's waking you early to prepare you for the version of yourself you're about to become. When God wakes you up early, it is not because something is wrong with you. It is because something is right about you. He wakes you because He trusts you with more than the average person can carry. Most people sleep comfortably through the night because their assignment is small, their calling is manageable, and their spiritual responsibility is light. But when God places a higher level of purpose on your life, He does not wait for your schedule to open. He creates moments where He can speak to you without competition. Those early hours are not an inconvenience. They are evidence that heaven has placed something weighty on your shoulders. And here's the hook that shifts everything. God doesn't wake people He can't trust. If He's waking you early, it's because He knows you're capable of walking in something bigger than what you're currently living. Responsibility in the kingdom doesn't begin with opportunities, it begins with obedience. Before God gives you influence, He tests your intimacy. Before He gives you impact, He tests your attention. If He cannot trust you to rise when He calls, why would He trust you to rise when the world needs you? Early awakenings are an honor because God is choosing you to receive instruction, preparation, and revelation before others even open their eyes. It's like being invited into a strategy meeting for your own destiny. While others are asleep, God is discussing your future with you. While the world is silent, heaven is shaping your steps. This kind of responsibility does not come to everyone. Only those who have shown a willingness to grow beyond comfort. Some people pray for elevation without understanding the responsibility that comes with it. They want to be promoted but don't want to be prepared. They want to be used by God, but don't want to be stretched by God. They want greater influence, but still cling to small habits. So God tests readiness by seeing how you respond when He wakes you early. Do you roll over or do you rise up? Do you ignore the nudge or do you lean into it? Do you treat the moment as an irritation or do you treat it as an invitation? God entrusts more to those who respond to His voice, even when it's inconvenient. And the hook is that your response in private determines your reward in public. When God trusts you with more, he doesn't start by giving you a platform. He starts by giving you private encounters. Those early morning wake-ups are the training ground for leaders, healers, creators, teachers, visionaries, and world changers. God knows that the weight of your calling requires strength that doesn't come from sleep. It comes from surrender. It comes from discipline. It comes from those moments where you choose God over comfort, whisper prayer over warm blankets, wisdom over drowsiness. He is shaping you into someone who can handle pressure without breaking, handle influence without pride, and handle attacks without fear. This is why your early awakenings often feel heavy. You feel something pushing you, pulling you, stretching you. That's because responsibility always comes before revelation. God needs to adjust your posture before he expands your territory. He wakes you because he's about to entrust you with decisions, opportunities, and divine tasks that require more maturity than you had yesterday. And before he elevates your circumstances, he elevates your character. Before he enlarges your influence, he enlarges your capacity. Before he blesses you openly, he builds you privately. And here's another powerful hook. Being awakened early is proof that you are chosen for something others are not carrying. You are not waking up like everyone else because you are not called like everyone else. Your path is different. Your pressure is different. Your preparation is different. And your promise is different. God wakes you early because your destiny demands a different level of discipline. He trusts you with weight because he has placed strength in you that even you haven't discovered yet. And every time you wake in those early hours, you are stepping deeper into the version of yourself that God saw long before you did. So don't mistake responsibility for burden. Don't mistake spiritual assignment for inconvenience. When heaven trusts you with more, it doesn't lighten your schedule, it sharpens your spirit. And if God is waking you early, it's because he sees in you what others haven't seen yet, someone he can trust with what truly matters. What feels like a disruption is often the first sign that your life is being realigned by God. Most people assume that waking up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. means something is wrong. Stress, overthinking, fear, imbalance. But what if the very thing you're calling a disturbance is actually the doorway to your next dimension? What if the shaking isn't meant to scare you, but to shift you? God rarely moves you into a new season without first moving something inside you. And here's the hook that changes everything. Disruption is the language God uses when he's done letting you live at the same level. When he disrupts your comfort, he is aligning your calling. When he disturbs your rest, he is awakening your resilience. When he interrupts your sleep, he is preparing your spirit for something that requires more awareness than you've ever walked in. People misunderstand divine alignment because it rarely looks peaceful at first. Alignment begins with discomfort. It begins with moments that don't make sense. You start feeling things you can't explain, thinking about things you didn't plan, and waking up at hours you didn't choose. That's the evidence that God is fine-tuning your direction. He's adjusting your pace. He's breaking old patterns that no longer serve your future. And to do that, he has to interrupt what feels normal. If he didn't disrupt your routine, you would stay attached to what's familiar. But when God has more for you, he will not allow you to hide in comfort. He will wake you up, literally and spiritually, because he refuses to let you miss what he designed you for. The powerful truth is that alignment always requires separation. You cannot be aligned with God's plan and attached to yesterday's thinking at the same time. So he disrupts your rhythm to create room for revelation. Those early morning awakenings are not about sleep. They're about spiritual posture. They're about positioning you in a place where you can hear clearly, sense deeply, and receive fully. When he wakes you in the quiet, he is pulling you out of environments, thoughts, habits, and cycles that no longer align with who you're becoming. It might feel uncomfortable, but alignment always costs comfort. And that discomfort is the exact sign that God is moving you towards something greater than what you're holding on to. And here's the hook many never recognize: God will use disruption to save you from misdirection. Sometimes the things you call delays are really protections. The things you call inconveniences are really corrections. God sees danger before you step into it. He sees manipulation before you notice it. He sees opportunities that look good, but would break your spirit if you touch them too soon. So he disrupts your plan to realign you with his path. Your early morning awakening might be the moment God is pulling you away from a wrong decision, a draining relationship, a destructive habit, or a door that looks open but leads nowhere. Alignment is God's way of ensuring your destiny does not get distorted by your desires. Many breakthroughs begin disguised as inconveniences. At first, it feels like something is being taken from you: your sleep, your comfort, your routine. But in reality, something is being given to you: clarity, awareness, spiritual sensitivity, inner strength. God is not disturbing you to weaken you. He is awakening you to strengthen you. He is building a version of you capable of handling blessings without breaking under pressure. He is aligning your thoughts with your purpose, your emotions with your faith, and your decisions with your destiny. Nothing about the disruption is random. It is strategic. It is targeted. It is purposeful. The truth is, you cannot walk into a higher level with the mindset of your last level. You cannot enter a new chapter with the lens of an old season. So God disrupts you to upgrade you. He shakes what is unstable so he can establish what is strong. He removes what distracts so he can reveal what directs. And every time you wake up in that early window, it is heaven's reminder: I'm not letting you miss what I prepared for you. That is the moment alignment begins. When you stop fighting the disruption and start embracing the transformation. When you realize that what feels inconvenient is actually God's fingerprint on your future, you stop resisting and start receiving. You stop questioning and start listening. You stop doubting and start aligning. Because every divine disruption is a sign that you're being repositioned, reshaped, and prepared for a season that requires the highest version of you. So hear me when I say this: if God is waking you early, it's because he has chosen you early. Don't ignore the invitation. Don't silence the whisper. Don't sleep through your assignment. Step into those quiet moments with God, because someone who meets with God in the dark will always walk in the light. Something powerful is coming, something purposeful is awakening, and something unstoppable is being formed in you right now. And it all begins with the simple, sacred moment when God wakes you up and you decide to wake up with him